And joining us now in studio, Rod Phillips, President and CEO of OLG, the Ontario Lottery and Gaming. And it's nice to have you in the studio, Rod.
Great to be here.
In that document, is your new strategic vision for the future of Ontario Lottery and Gaming. Give us the bullet points.
You know, Steve, we were asked over a year ago to look at gaming and lottery in Ontario and say, what needs to change? Is the model working? And it's a model that's contributed $35 billion since OLG was formed, but it's a model that was in need of reform. A lot of the bases were really set decades ago on the lottery front, and certainly over a decade ago on the gaming front. So the high-level plan is really 3 points. We want to be closer to our customers with the games that we want. We're going to see increased use of the regulated private sector, overseen by government, but supporting OLG. And OLG becomes a leaner, more focused organization, focused on areas like market management, oversight, and responsible gambling.
What's not working now?
Right now, we have a system that is based on the historical realities of a border focus. So when we talk about our gaming facilities, our casinos, 10 years ago those facilities made $800 million contribution. Today they're making less than $100 million contribution. We also have changing demographics. Used to be, in the year 2000, about 1 in 3 people under the age of 45, adults under 45, played the lottery. By 2015, that number is 1 in 14. So we need to change our approach. We have the threat and the opportunity of online gaming, over $400 million going out of the province with the reality of the internet. And so those are all threats to our contribution to the province, which is close to $2 billion and has been close to $2 billion.
We should just establish that. Everybody thinks the liquor board, the LCBO, is the #1 remitter of money to the Treasury. It's actually you guys.
That's right. We are the #1 source of non-tax revenue, and with a very popular pastime. 8 million Ontarians last year played the lottery. 2.7 million Ontarians went to our gambling facility. So it's something Ontarians enjoy, but it's something that, as has been said, we haven't been doing in the most efficient and effective way because the model is broken.
So let's just understand this, because we took this program on the road not too long ago, went to Windsor, saw the casino there, looks impressive. Not making money anymore?
You know, Windsor, and I could talk about the different geographies, but we're challenged in the Windsor area. The reality about the Windsor locations when they were open was it was the only place to gamble for about 500 miles. Today, there's 3 facilities across the border. We also have all the issues that have happened on the border since 9/11. We have the exchange rate. Your US dollar used to get you 6 quarters, now it gets you 4. And frankly, OLG itself had a oversupply of facilities. So one of the actions we took last week after the government had approved our report was the announcement of the closure of 3 facilities, including the Windsor Slots facility, as well as the facility at Hiawatha and Sarnia.
So is that more likely to make Caesars and Windsor more profitable now?
You know, when we look at it from a business point of view, I mean, this was a tough decision. OLG had never closed a facility, but the locations of those facilities were based on that historic model. In the day, we could do very well because there was a lot of Americans coming across the border, and today they aren't, and yet we had the exact same configuration of facilities.
Okay, but are they losing money?
It's challenging there, and we're gonna
yes or no. Are they losing money in Windsor?
It's not, because you know we're focused on that area, on the Niagara area, as well as the other border areas, and we're going to we have an approach now in those areas that I think is going to work. We have reduced our facilities, as I said, a tough but necessary decision. We now, as well, about 2 weeks ago, have confirmation that head-to-head sports betting, which is going to be a very profitable and significant opportunity for our border sites to start bringing Americans back across the border, and then focusing on those American markets. So we need to do that so that it won't be so challenging.
Was it 600 jobs lost as a result of these shutdowns?
Yeah, just under 600.
Had the OLG ever laid off anybody in the past?
We had, but never never at that level, and never closing a site. And so it was a very difficult day for the organization. I was down in Windsor to break the news to the employees there, and the point I made to them, and we've had town hall sessions for over 1,000 employees since the launch of the report, is the changes we're talking about aren't because the employees weren't doing a good job. They were doing a great job, but it's back to that model. If you leave a business model in place for a decade and the world changes around it, more casinos on the border, the internet, those things happen, and you don't change, then not surprisingly, you're going to have issues. That's those profitability issues, 800 million to less than 100 million. Those are the things the plan plan is meant to address.
How many locations have you got in Niagara? Is it 2?
In Niagara, we have 2 now. We closed one. The Fort Erie facility was in the Niagara region as well.
So is one of the sites in Niagara vulnerable at the moment?
No, we're comfortable now. We've been through the site closing process, and that was very important that we move quickly so that the 3 sites we closed. We've talked about 2 other stages now that we're going to be looking at potential relocations, and that's in line with the discussions we've had about saying we need to have things closer to our customers, and then new sites. But again, in the Niagara area, with the advent of the head-to-head sports betting, with a renewed focus on the U.S. customer, and having removed the supply that came from the Fort Erie site, we are increasingly confident we can be successful.
You want to open a casino in Toronto, in the Toronto area.
In the GTA.
Greater Toronto area. How come?
When you look at gaming, it's like any other product. It's a matter of the amount and the availability and are people, the customers, able to play the games they want to play where they want to play them. We know that the GTA is one of the most underserviced gaming markets in North America. We know that Woodbine, which is a current facility that we have in the City of Toronto, is by far our busiest facility and one of the busiest gaming floors in North America. So we know from the work we've been able to do as well as our experience that there's an opportunity in the GTA for another significant facility. And that kind of facility would be a huge draw from a tourist point of view, great job creator, great opportunity obviously for OLG and whatever municipal government to earn revenue.
The obvious follow-up is there's only so much gambling money to go around, and if you put something in Toronto, you'll pillage from Rama, you'll pillage from Niagara Falls, you'll pillage from Woodbine. Are you not concerned about that?
You know, we have to be concerned about that because all of those locations are OLG locations. The reality is, along the border, we've been being cannibalized by U.S. locations. In the case of Niagara, it's been the Seneca location, which if people watch the ads in Toronto, they'll see that they're advertising in Toronto to try and get Toronto players to go down to New York State. So that's a reality. We have to address that reality. We believe that we can have that other significant facility, create the jobs, create the revenue, create the tourist opportunity, and still see those other facilities be very successful.
Do you have a view as to where in Toronto it should go?
Our view at this point is that in the GTA, there's the opportunity. The announcement last week, the government gave us the authority to go have those conversations. We're going to be starting to have those conversations. We've already had a number of expressions, even in the public media, about municipalities that are interested. And obviously Toronto's in the GTA, so it's part of that. But the main driver for us is going to be we want to have our games near our customers.
Okay, if you don't want to identify a site, and I understand that because you're in negotiations with different municipalities right now, can you give us some criteria that are 1, 2, 3 most important things that a casino should have?
You know, we want to make sure that this is a world-class facility, and it's an overused word in the Toronto context sometimes. But this shouldn't be built unless it is something that we can make a landmark from a tourist perspective as well as from a local GTA perspective. It does need to be close to where the customers are, and we want to have proximity to the people who want to play those games. And I think the third is it should fit into the broader opportunities within the region around what local governments want to accomplish. One of the things we haven't done as well as we could have in the past is be aligned to the local municipalities' own development expectations. So if there's parts of a GTA municipality where there's an interest in developing that place, you know, this isn't something that's going to be in people's backyards. It's going to be something that's in a location where it makes sense, where a municipality is trying to develop a portion of that area or sees the opportunity.
But help me with a comparison here. If you're building a new hockey arena or a new football stadium, you'd say for sure it's got to be near a subway line or public transit of some kind. Is that an important criteria if you're building a casino?
That gets back to the focus on the customers. So customers need to get to a facility, and that needs to reflect where we're talking about in the GTA. In some parts of the GTA, transit opportunities aren't as available. In others, they are. So those would all be part of that criteria.
Is that important to you?
Well, focuses on the customer. So anything that is easier for our customer, that makes two couples who are going out for dinner. I mean, we're talking about world-class restaurants. We're talking about entertainment. We're talking about all those amenities that come and that we have the experience of seeing come with gaming in Ontario. We want them to be as easy for them to access and as enjoyable for them to access as possible.
Rod, let me ask you about sin. You know this is coming. Should the government be actively promoting something such as, call it gaming, call it gambling, that may not be in the best interests of its citizens?
Well, it's a question that I think, I was talking to employees yesterday and the question came up. And I think every person who I know, and there's 18,000 people who work in gaming in Ontario, that everybody asks themselves when they go to take that job is, how do I feel about what I'm doing? And so at a personal level, to answer the question, this is a form of entertainment. It's a form of entertainment that people enjoy. Different people enjoy different sorts of things. I'm not a big fan of bowling, but there's people who enjoy bowling, and I think that's great.
But if you go bowling, you don't necessarily end up in Bowlers Anonymous, which is the equivalent of Gamblers Anonymous. You know what I'm saying?
And the vast majority of people who enjoy gaming, 2.7 million last year just in Ontario, individuals, they enjoy it. They enjoy it in a healthy way, and that's what we want them to do. When it comes to problem gambling, which is an important issue, we address that directly. We don't want one problem gambler gambling in an OLG facility. Now, how do we turn that wish into a reality? We invest more, and the Ontario government invests more than any other jurisdiction in North America. We have policies and approaches around self-exclusion, including video self-exclusion and really landmark approaches to that. And we continue to support research, and the government through the Ministry of Health supports research to make sure that we're living up to that promise.
Okay, you say you don't want problem gamblers, but if I understand the business plan, don't you depend on problem gamblers to make sure that you can send as much money as possible to the province of Ontario?
You don't, and it's a there's a number of views about what gambling is and what gambling isn't. That's not what we rely on. What we rely on are people having a choice around entertainment. And when it comes back to my own view of it, people should have that choice. For those people for whom that choice is not a good choice because they don't have the control required, and we're talking about a small minority of individuals, then we should put every support in place. But to suggest, to go to the other extreme, there really are two arguments on this. One is, if you're going to have it, do it the right way. And I think that's what Ontario does. The other is don't have it at all. And I think that horse is out of the barn in Ontario.
I hear you. Lots of people want this. But on the one hand, alcohol in moderation is fine. But we know there's some people who can't handle it. And just to be safe, we make sure the bars close at 2 a.m. Casinos are a 24/7 operation. Could you close a casino at 2 o'clock in the morning to make sure the problem gamblers at least have a chance to go home?
There are all kinds of areas where Ontario has been a leader in those kinds of suggestions. Timeouts on slot machines. A lot of those things are the sorts of things where Ontario are the folks working with the Responsible Gambling Council, CAMH, and others to have a focus on that. My first discussion, the first briefing I led after the launch of this initiative last Monday was with our responsible gambling stakeholders, where we went and explained to them what we were doing. But you used alcohol as an example, and let me take that example a bit further. If we think that, and we know that there's people who have a problem with alcohol, and it's a substantially higher percentage than do with gambling, particularly severe issues, then the equivalent solution when we talk about the GTA would be to take all the liquor stores out of Toronto, to say that somehow if we did that,
we don't allow them to be open 24/7.
No, but we would say there shouldn't be any, and we would say that is going to stop a person who has a problem from getting alcohol.
What if we say you can have a casino, but just to respect the people who may have a problem with it, and to respect the neighbors who might live near it, you got to close it at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. or whatever. Pick an arbitrary time. Would you be open to that?
We're open to all kinds of suggestions, and the good news is we've worked closely with the experts in this area who have very creative and very effective solutions. They know what works and they know what doesn't. Another way to look at the responsible gambling issue, another comparison, could be to things like cars. So in the 50s and 60s, automobiles weren't the safest things. They didn't have seat belts, they didn't have airbags. We're the equivalent, if you want, of California in terms of innovating when it comes to gambling, around looking at what those creative solutions are so that you can improve the safety of this pastime, just like they improve the safety of automobiles.
So is closing, is closing time I know you said there's lots of creative ideas out there. Is that a creative idea you could sign on to?
We are comfortable looking at all the options, particularly that come from the experts in the field. And the experts in the field talk about a lot of issues. They talk about how the machines operate, whether you have windows.
Do they say closing time matters?
Clocks. That's not one that they've suggested to me, anyway. Clocks available in the facilities. The sorts of things that could run counter to some of the views.
That you don't see in Vegas.
And that you don't see in some places in Vegas.
Yeah. Rod, people may not know this about your background, but you've got a long history in politics, and we should remind everybody you worked for Mel Lastman, you worked for John Tory. So take your CEO hat off for a second and put your sort of former political advisor hat on for a second. If the Treasury needs more money, why is it a better idea to raise it through gaming as opposed to just saying, we need more money, let's raise taxes?
I think when we look at a very, very challenging, and I certainly don't envy the government the financial challenges that we have today. When they look across the options, and we look across the options about where do taxpayers finally stand in terms of wanting to raise taxes versus other options. I think voluntary approaches that are part of entertainment, and there are people who argue about whether the government should even be involved in things like gaming and liquor. I think they should be, and I think that's what Ontarians think. But given that Ontarians think that, and given that's the reality, I think that responsibly, alternative sources of revenue make a lot of sense. And in the case of, when we look at gaming in Ontario and lottery in Ontario, we've fallen well behind. We're second to last in terms of our contribution per adult compared to other provinces because of that model problem that we've talked about. So the sort of things that the government has talked about is that if we're going to do this, we should do it well. We should do it efficiently. We should do it responsibly. And I think that's a very legitimate thing. And I think most Ontarians would want the businesses that the Ontario government runs to be run efficiently and to be run effectively.
Okay, 2 more questions in our last 30 seconds. Are you here tonight to say that for sure, at some point in the next decade, there will be a new casino somewhere in the Greater Toronto Area?
I believe there will.
That's a done deal.
I believe there will. It's up to, of course, those municipalities, because this isn't going to be done anywhere that people don't want it. But I think there's a lot of excitement about the opportunity. This is just the beginning of a process, by the way.
If it's not in the 416, it might be somewhere in the 905?
The GTA is a big area, but I think that, what needs to happen now is we need to begin the process, have the conversations, talk to people about what's involved, the upsides, address as well the concerns that people have, very legitimately. And I believe that at the end of the day, a great opportunity, increased tourism, increased jobs, good thing.
Okay. Rod Phillips, President, CEO, OLG. Thanks for coming in tonight, Rod.
Thank you.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.